Karen, how are you? So nice to be here today.
I'm fantastic, and it's so good to have you here. And look at us in our matching colours. We're the maroon girls today. So I'm not sure what it signifies, but maybe it's
Like a berry color. We're very berry Merry Christmas.
maybe that's what it is. Well, we look wonderful. Kristi, you're doing some incredible work. I'm friends with a few people on Facebook that have connected with you, and in particular Manasi Patel. She's and she was holding up the book. Guess what? I'm in this book, Young Changemakers. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, that's like Magnificent Kids. I'm so glad, because this whole bullshit about competition, well, you wrote a book, no, but I won't rhyme better. No, none of that crap. If people are on the same page, it's fantastic. So anyway, then I connected with you and said, hey, let's do a podcast. And I've been watching your posts, and I love your passion for what you do. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's one of those things that, sometimes when I started this, it was much smaller and it didn't even take on the same shape or same form as it is now. And then as you go along, it evolves into something bigger and better than you ever even imagined that it would. And over COVID time, I said, well, let me, reach out and do like a mentoring program for some young kids, so that this way, I knew I wanted to do that as a way of, I didn't want to be a life coach. I wanted to be a mentor for youth. And I said, well, let's do a group. And so I had all of these kids that either they reached out to me on LinkedIn, or I had known them from other areas, or I don't know. And so we did for 3 weeks this, mentoring program on motivation and how to stay motivated. And it just evolved into great relationships that I made with these kids, and me really realizing that they're way more incredible before me. I just, was there and learning from them just as much as they were learning from me. And so when it all kind of evolved, I just said, I had this in the back of my mind for a while, like after I had published my first book last year, at the beginning of November, called Follows and Likes, Is This All I'm Worth? And I took the stories of adults and I said, let me tell their story of adults who come from extreme adversity, but are successful in their area, in their industry, not necessarily famous, not necessarily whatever it might be, but, at the same time, some extremely incredible human beings from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different walks of life, and all different industries. And after I did that, I said, well, okay, but maybe youth don't want to read from, learn from adults, well, in a sense. And I said, maybe they want to be inspired by those that are out there doing what they wish they could be doing. There's nobody better to get you motivated and doing what you feel like you should be doing than those that are in the same age bracket, as opposed to an adult saying, you can do this, I know you can. Having another teenager who's your same age saying, you can do this, I know you can because I'm doing it. That I thought was a different aspect, a different point of view. And when I reached out to, I think there were probably about 20 of them. 12 had committed. Before I said anything about, I told them what the book was about. I told them what the reason was. Nobody was attached to it yet. Nothing was, it was just a book to get out to other youth so that they can basically believe and be inspired to know that they can do the same thing. It doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a big change or a small change,
Yeah.
you can do it as well. And so when it started out this way, I took Evan Carmichael's one word and I said, okay, well, where am I going to start with that? Like, and so I focused in on that and had them go through the process of what's their one word. And that's where you see all their hashtags, like even on the cover next to each person's name, there's the hashtag, and the hashtag is their one word and what motivates them and what their purpose is. And so in doing that, they found it inspiring. And then I took Bruce Pulver's, he takes the words and he makes acrostics with them, acrostic poems. So you take the letters and then you say what that means to you. So I'm like, okay, that's what each chapter can start with. And then they go in and tell their story. And so that's how it evolved. I didn't really have a plan. In October, I was like, okay, we got to get this out by Christmas. And they weren't even done with their chapters. I'm like, we have to do this. Let's go. Like, we can do this. And November 1st, some of them still hadn't finished their chapters, but I was like, we're doing this. Let's go. We've got this, and it was just a matter of me taking it and organizing it and doing the margins, how formatting and all that stuff and the cover and everything. And you know what? It's not too bad.
I reckon it's fantastic.
So, that's one of the things that if I set my mind to something, then usually it evolves. But when you're working with 12 other young people at the same time, it's like, okay, guys, like, I don't want to break out the adult voice here, but come on, you gotta get here. You gotta meet me halfway here. So it turned out to be wonderful. And they're all incredible kids, and all of their stories are incredible. And it has been since it came out, like the second day, it's been #1 on the new releases for teen and young adults. So that's in Amazon. So that's wonderful. And it's not about that, but for me, it's about if it's there, then maybe more people will say, oh, I wonder what this is, because it's about the mission. It's about getting these voices and maybe inspiring other young people to say, hey, you know what? If they can, they're just like me. They're doing just the exact same thing. If they can do it, so can I. And that's really what it's all about.
Oh, I love it. And it's exactly the same as Magnificent Kids, exactly the same message. If they can do it, so can you, and give it a crack. And I had about the same ratio, that I emailed out to, and then about the same ratio came back. And I hear you, that trying to chase those last chapters was like, I don't want to get out my big girl pants, but Jesus, when are we going to get this done if we don't get? And there was a couple that I thought you might not end up in the book, because I just can't, I can't keep waiting. But they all did come good. So if anybody listening, Kristi's talking about her new book, Young Changemakers, which just came out a few days ago. Well, this episode will be recorded a few weeks before it goes live. So let's say it came out a few weeks ago. It came out in December 2022, just before Christmas. And it is a fantastic book, and it's 12 stories of these young change makers, and really inspiring. So, you're not going to get it in time for Christmas, but if you've got a kid that's got a birthday coming up, or, or even for next Christmas, or even just want to give it to a parent or a teacher who wants to inspire young people, like these are the books we need out in the world. And like I said before, there's it's not about, well, you did one, I did one. It's about we're all doing. Let's get as many out there as possible to get these kids to start believing themselves, because like I was saying to Kristi before we came on, it's us adults have, and I'm not blaming everyone and I'm not pointing fingers, but as a general rule, us adults have screwed this planet up so bad, and we've screwed up so many things because we've stuck to traditional systems that have become outdated, and we've left the kids to clean up the mess. And yes, I'm taking responsibility, and a lot of other people are standing up and saying, well, we need to help the kids do this. And we've got to make the world better for the kids, give them as many tools and strategies and much access to do good stuff as possible. So my hat's off to you. Thank you so much. And you also talked about in there, your first book, Follows and Likes, Is This All I'm Worth? And you said that was about adults coming through adversity. What made you write that book?
The same concept of me wanting to help the younger generation, to say, you know what, you may be going through this today, but these people went through this exact story, exact situation, and look at where they are now. And so I can't say that I understand what every young person is going through. So I created like a toolbox, right? And that I could say, but I may not have gone through that, but this person went through that, or this person went through that, and so it's basically such adversity, some coming through, being, sexual molestation as children, some going through, not thinking that they were going to, growing up in discriminated areas and not thinking they'd be able to make their way out of it. Some growing up in poverty in India, some growing up in one of them, which he's one of my most inspiring stories that I love, is Jonte Hall, and he's 5 feet 2 inches tall, and he always wanted to play basketball. He loved to play basketball, and his story is just incredible. Well, fast forward, he ended up becoming a Harlem Globetrotter at 26 years old, and he never gave up on his dream to play basketball, and so it's all of those little things. Like you might be short, but guess what? This person overcame that and still followed his dreams. You might be an immigrant, but look, this person overcame that and is now a top lawyer in Manhattan, right? You might be, I don't know, you might have gone through sexual trauma as a young person, but look at what this person, there's 2 stories in the book, that what they did with that. And just, again, so each chapter starts with a lesson of what it was, of whether it's resilience, faith, compare and contrast, and then it ends with a story of one of these people who just, I couldn't have picked any better people and they're all very different, all different walks of life, all different countries that they're from, to be a part of it. And their stories are also different, also touching, and from foster care system to growing up. I don't know if you know who Greg Walker is, but he's also an inspirational, motivational speaker. He works a lot with Les Brown, and he was, he was number 13 of 15 kids, and he was the only one that he ended up graduating high school. And it was because of a program that Danny Thomas started, which is the owner of Wendy's, that he ended up being mentored by Danny Thomas. And
wow.
And it's just incredible. Like I love that book with my whole heart, and because that really, I learned just as much from it as I want anybody else to learn from it. But it is just one of those things that it doesn't matter how many people follow you, how many people like you, or what's in your feed, or what are you going to do to make a difference in the world? Stop comparing yourself and start lifting other people up. And so it was the same premise, the same idea, except for the second one, I said, okay, well, instead of redoing, another volume of the first one, let's get the teens, to come and see what they're doing to impact the world. So now I have 2 of them that I'll probably end up doing as volumes, so that they will keep on going. And with that being said, I just think that it's time that they're heard, and it's time that young people don't look at tragedy as something that is meant to hold them back, but is something to use to push them forward to help others. And I mean, obviously it's a lot easier said than done, but we can be victims or we could be victors, right? So it depends on which one are you going to choose.
Oh, I love it so much. I had Herb Lang was one of the Globetrotters on a few months ago, and he's
in the book.
Is he in the book? Oh, that's fantastic. Herb is wonderful. He's beautiful, and I'm sure Jonty is just as bloody lovely. And oh wow! And I just interviewed Ariana Fox as well. So she's out of your Young Game Changers book, and she's mind-blowing as well. And there are so many great people out there, and you're right, you don't have to be famous. Like, well, the Globetrotters are famous, but there's not that many people who can name all of them, and they rotate quite a bit. But to achieve that sort of level of success, and it is success, it's like, yeah, man, I'm doing what I love, I'm bringing happiness to people, I'm traveling the world. That's successful. It's and we get too caught up. It's funny is that when you talk about being victims, we get so caught up, humans, I'm not saying individuals, but humans in bulk, get caught up in whinging about all the little things. And when you think about all these people out there that have overcome extreme adversity, you kind of makes you stop and go, oh my God, does it really matter? Does it really matter if the rain just came in the back door? Does it really matter if you didn't get the washing done? Does it really matter if 3 people only liked your bloody post? And I don't know. Same with my podcast. I don't look at the downloads. I never look at the downloads. I don't give a shit. It's whatever it is. I know that my intent is to put out content that inspires people, and it can do, the universe can take care of it after that, and it just, whatever it is. But now you like your slogan is dedicated to creating access to equal education and employment opportunities worldwide. So you got your 2 books, which is, I'll say it again, Follows and Likes, Is This All I'm Worth? And the other one is Young Changemakers. But you also set up the Maggio Multicultural Foundation and the Maggio Multicultural Academy. And you also got a podcast, Secret to Success. Now, without unpacking any of them just yet, I want to go back and ask you, what's the back end to this journey? Like, how did you, where did you come from as a kid? And how did you end up doing what you do, all of this great stuff?
So I was born and raised in a small town called Rome, New York. And I, as growing up, I ended up becoming a teacher. I didn't want to become a teacher but that was my gift that God gave me. And I've always been great in education with youth and working with kids. So it was just I couldn't deny the gift that God gave me anymore. As much as I wanted to go into international business and all of this other stuff, my gift was my gift. And so for years I was a teacher in the States. And then I just came to the point where I didn't like what I was seeing. And they said there's got to be a change. So I got my administrative degree to be a principal or superintendent, because I realized that I needed to be higher up in order to make a change. Then, and I'm really putting this in a nutshell right now, but then I realized that, like, even within the system, you can't really make a change. So my thought was I was going to go to the Dominican Republic for a year to perfect my Spanish. And then this way I could work in inner city schools. Not that I couldn't get a job in inner city schools, but I figured at that point in time, I would be looked at more, would be more differentiated because I spoke Spanish. Where in the United States, if you speak Spanish in inner city schools, you're looked at, as having a bonus. And so that was my thought. So I went to the Dominican Republic for a year thinking I'd come back and apply for positions. And I ended up staying there because I ended up seeing a market there. Not just to help people, but also most schools were businesses run by people who had no idea about education. And it was a tourist area. So people from other countries would come there to work, but then they were kind of slaves to the school, whatever schools existed. Either had your extreme private schools, which were like $12,000 or $13,000 a year, or your lower end private schools, which could be like $50 a month. It all depended. And there weren't enough public schools for all the kids. So my thought was, okay, I could do it twofold. I could start a school, as well, be my own boss, and help other kids in the community as well. So it all kind of evolved out of that. And so, but it didn't just right away. So I moved there in 2013, and I didn't open the school until 2016. Because I was just kind of getting the lay of the land, trying to understand what I wanted to do with it all. And when I realized that I wanted to open a school for kids, I started in 2016 with only 7 students. And they were all paying students. Their parents I had been tutoring these kids in English, and their parents were like, okay, well, we want you to start a school. And so I started there, ended that year with 14 students, and then it grew to almost 100 kids when COVID had hit. And at that point it evolved into doing water projects and helping other people in the community, medical supplies and stuff like that. So I started the foundation side as well, because we also sponsored kids to attend the school. There was paying those that paid and those that were sponsored. So, and when COVID hit, I was in the process of buying land to build a whole new facility, because I had only rented at that point in time. And everything fell through. I lost everything. I lost it all. It all went away. Parents abandoned the school. They stopped paying. And I had to sell everything. I had to get rid of everything just to survive, which I didn't pivot fast enough. So I don't blame COVID. I also blame myself, because I was one of those people who said, well, if I have to teach somebody else how to do it, then I could do it faster myself. And so, like I didn't have the proper team in place to take on that impact. And so, and I didn't pivot fast enough. So it just all just shattered. But meanwhile, this is where all the other great things came out of it too. You know, I got the idea for the book, the first book, and I started a series because I had a radio show in Punta Cana. And so I started this series of success to try and help people to, you know, say, okay, this is what we can do, different things. We can be inspired by a lot of other people at this time and not let it break us down. Then I started the podcast, and then I was introduced to Clubhouse, where is how I quote unquote met many of the people that were in the book, the first book. So a lot of great things came out of it. And then I also learned the whole spectrum of online schooling and online instruction. So now not only do I reopened the physical school in the Dominican Republic, but now I have the virtual side. And this year we also started with the first time with, it started out at 30 kids, but now it's down to 17 kids because, you know, even with kids that, you know, don't have anything, you can bring them to water, but you can't make them drink. And so, which is okay for the first year. So we have 17 kids online in Uganda that are working through this program, so that what will happen is that they will graduate with a diploma from the United States. The foundation of the entire high school curriculum is in entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial skills. And then they will also graduate with a specialization. So right now our focus is in IT. We have Cisco certified technician program, and then we'll work with cloud, Python, other areas, so that not only are they getting an education, because most of them will not be able to go to college. You know, the money's not there. But if they could get a specialization by the time they graduate high school, then they'll be able to work remotely as long as they have a signal and a laptop. And so really, I think it's an exciting moment in time where we can actually look and say, you know what, where you live, what your circumstances are, is not going to define the rest of your life. We can actually diminish generational poverty at this point because of the rapid advancement of technology because of COVID, you know? So while there's so many negatives that came from it, there are also a lot of upsides that came from it as well. And so no longer do you have to think about, okay, I'm going to educate these kids, but then what are they going to do? Right? Because if you think about it, without employment, education only goes so far. Without a skill that they can actually use it for, you know, while education is great, of course, but there's that other side, there's other pieces to the puzzle that they have to go together. You have to somehow give them the opportunity to be able to be employed no matter where they are. And so if they're in rural Uganda or, you know, in a metropolis, you have to give them the same opportunities. So that is really where it kind of all came together, but never once did it start that way. You know, it started with a thought, an idea, a vision, a little bit here, a little bit there. And then it kind of, you know, snowballed into something greater.
I love it. I've actually got a not-for-profit called One Planet Classrooms, and I've got 140 kids in school, sponsored in school in Uganda. So it's the but
Really?
yeah, but you've just made me think even deeper then, saying, well, yeah, if they don't, we can put them through to S4, to the as far as they can go practically in secondary. But yeah, if they don't have a job, and it's very hard to fund them getting a job. So I like that. I really love that idea. Absolutely love it. And the other thing too is that I started that as a Skype project, and long story, I won't go in the whole thing, but it was meant to be kids in Africa Skyping with kids in Australia, and the whole thing went to shit because I'm sending laptops to what the issues are in Uganda.
Yes.
95% of them don't have power. It's just a nightmare, and plus they weren't in the time zones and everything else. But I transferred that to water projects and putting in water tanks in schools and water wells and that kind of stuff, and also getting kids into school. So which is actually a much better project than what I started with.
Mhm.
And my girls with hammers, that was meant to be for girls in schools. They thought I was like very boring, this old fart telling me, telling them what to do. But now it's a fantastic thing for women, for women to get together and empower women. So I love the idea that things, be willing to. I know you're talking about pivot in COVID, and that really wasn't. That was extreme. You had to, like, we were like, what the hell? Am I going to live? Am I going to have money coming in? What's going on? How do I pivot? Like our brains were just a mess. And many people did pivot on time. Many didn't. It was just kind of like, what is this thing that's come out of nowhere? But take COVID aside, and when
Yeah.
you're setting up a project, when you haven't got all the stress of COVID, it is a good thing to say, this isn't exactly what I envisaged, but you know what? This is where, call it God, call it the universe, call it the world, call it energy. I don't care what you call it, but this is where the energy is taking me to, and I'm just going to unpack it here. It's great.
I'll be honest, my faith is what, and I call it God, and like you said, many people call it different things, but I call it God. And my faith is what got me through it. Like, he was so clear to me. And it was more me being like, okay, God, can we move this along a little faster? And, but everything is God's timing. And when things go through, when they happen, and then you're just kind of like, oh, that's why it needed to be now and not when I wanted it to be like a year ago. Okay, I get it. And I think that's really important. And I think that's one of the things that, whatever you want to call it, when we truly look back on our lives and we see those moments of why things didn't work out, or when they did, why they did at that time.
Yep.
Or when you got that idea and then all of a sudden 9 years later you see it coming to fruition, it's like, okay, wow. And if you can just remember those moments in the hard times,
yep,
it will push you through to say, okay, now I know this is going to happen, because even when I didn't see any end in sight before and this happened, I have faith enough that I know it will. What's meant for me can't go past me.
yeah,
And as long as you have that faith and you stick with it. And so I think that that's truly important. And I wish more young people would hone in on that, on faith, on that belief that they can do it. It's not easy, it's not easy. And adults too, you often question, why is this happening to me? Well, why not? We have to look at it as, sometimes we're going through those moments to learn something.
yeah.
It's not
I agree. Yeah. I'm not a religious person at all, and I'm not atheist. I just don't believe in a God, but I do believe in the universe. It's exactly what you're saying. It doesn't matter. It's having faith in something, that something's got your back. That's the thing. And I think that one thing that is, I'm also a really strong optimist, and I think that's associated with that faith. Is that I just know that everything will be okay around the corner. And it's about riding through it. There's a great song by Garth Brooks. I'm sure you know Garth Brooks, and it's called Unanswered.
I do. What song is it? Tell me, because I probably refer to it all the time.
It's Unanswered Prayers.
I do it. I do it all the time. I see it. Oh my God, that's so funny. I'm shocked. And I always refer back to that song. I love the fact he says, sometimes God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. And and I refer back to the song all the time, and I love it. And that's key right there. That is really key, because they are gifts. When we look, I could think of a million things that I was praying for in the past that didn't come to fruition, but had they come to fruition, I wouldn't have what I have today. Exactly. And so you have to look at it that way. But I do.
I love that song. And for anyone who's listening, go listen to it. Garth Brooks, Unanswered Prayers. And basically the song goes that he was at a football match with his wife, and he met an old girlfriend, and he sort of reminisced back and thought, oh God, back then he was praying to God, give me that girl to be my wife, and now he's saying she's not the same. And thank God for unanswered prayers. It's just, now he's got his wife, and it was what was meant to happen. It's such a freaking good song, and it's such a great reminder and it's actually a really nice, how can I say it? It's quite soothing, when something doesn't go right, and you think of that song, you think, yeah, okay, I can let it go. I can let it go. I love that you love that song.
As soon as you said Garth Brooks, I'm like, I know what she's gonna say. I know it. I refer to that all the time.
I love Garth Brooks, and there's also, If Tomorrow Never Comes, and I heard his version well before I heard Ronan Keating bring it out, and that song used to bring me to tears over and over and over. But it was a song that changed my life, because it was, what I recognized in that is that, it says, tell people you love them, and I started to think, we will live in such a silly world where we won't say anything unless it's reciprocated, and then we fear that someone won't say it back and all this kind of rubbish. And then I just started saying it. I just thought, I don't care what you think of me. I think you're great, and I'm going to say you're great, and I'm not waiting for you to come back and say, oh, so are you. Exactly. And it is life-changing, the freedom that comes with just telling people, you are freaking awesome. And without any expectation of it coming back, is freedom on wheels. I can tell you, it is one of the best things that you can ever do. Anyway, we're getting off track, but geez, I love Garth Brooks. Now,
no, but it's true though. But going back to what you were saying there, though, it's like once you can leave the ego, once you can leave that behind and say, I'm doing this selflessly for the better of whatever it is that I'm doing, and you can put yourself out there in a way that it doesn't, like you just said, it doesn't matter if they they reciprocate what I say. It doesn't matter if, whatever it is, I'm meant to get this message out. I'm meant to do this. A lot of times people are back because they're worried about what other people think. And we often stop ourselves because we're worried about what other people think. And I often say, if nobody else existed on this planet, would I still do the same thing? Would I say it?
Yeah.
And if I say that I would say it, if nobody else existed, then it's meant to be said.
Yeah. I love that. Something has changed my life in the same sort of vein is I used to teach. I was a disability student, so I was I was a student to learn how to work with people with disabilities, and then I became a teacher in the same. My teacher said, "I want you to come and start teaching with me." And one woman in the class got me aside and she said, I'm so glad you're teaching because you can give me the answers, you can help me. And I said, no freaking way. I said, I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to make a difference. And it was the most powerful thing that came out of my mouth, and I'd never said it before, but it came out like that. And it's what I came to realize very quickly is my job on this planet is to make a difference. And if I make friends in the process, that's icing on the cake, and that's lovely. But I don't need to make friends, but I do need to make a difference. I do want to make friends, don't get me wrong, because that makes life so much easier. But that was such an empowering thing. And it's the same thing as we're talking about. It's like, I get up every day, as you do, your purpose. You get up every day to make a difference in whatever way we're doing it. And that is, I believe I can get to my deathbed and go, I fulfilled my purpose on this planet, and some people might think, oh yeah, but did you have fun? Well, I think I have heaps of bloody fun.
Yeah, right.
And so my partner says, you're obsessed with your work, and I'm like, yes, because it's not work. It's lifestyle. It's the rent I pay for being on this beautiful planet, and I want it to continue to be beautiful. So therefore, I'm going to keep doing the gardening.
Well, you know what? It's interesting you say that, because I have this quote that I live by, and it's like, I say, because everyone's like, look, you work so hard, why? And I said, it's not hard work, it's heart work.
Yeah.
Because nothing's ever hard when it comes from the heart.
Absolutely.
And so when someone says that to me, I'm like, I love what I do. It comes from my heart. And so it's not work.
Yeah.
It's not hard. It's not difficult at all. There's some days I'd like to throw in the towel for a little bit, maybe have a little reprieve or something like that. Don't get me wrong. That's natural. However, what keeps me going back time and time again, even during those moments, is the fact that I love what I do.
Yeah. Same. I'm the same. And there's so many people out there who don't love what they do, and I keep trying to say, we get off the bench, just do what you love. For God's sake, do more of what you love. But I also have those days I want to throw in the towel. Some days I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. So I crack the shits, and then I have a bit of a walk around, and then I huff and puff, and then I think, and then I go, oh, I've got an idea. I know what to do. And then I come back to it. But I have to have my little moment of huffing and puffing. Now,
Yeah.
I love your mission. And I'm going to read it out because I don't want to bugger it up. But your mission is to impact the lives of 1 billion youth in the next 10 years by providing an educational program based on entrepreneurship and applied learning. So 1 billion youth in the next 10 years. Are you well on your way? How are you going with that measurement?
I'd like to have more than that. However, the hard part is, like, for example, with this book, right? I'd like to impact 1 billion youth. And I pray that I've gotten to, at least a couple thousand by now.
Yeah.
In the sense of, with the book, with them reading it, with these young people, and then them spreading the message on to their friends, and that having an impact on them as well. I think that I have a good start out the gate. And I think that, with that being said, it's going to take time for it to grow, but I'm confident in that, because that really means that I need to impact a million young people just in this year, right? Yeah. And so, but I think sometimes you don't know who you're impacting, right? Yeah. You may not have personal contact with them, but then they come back years later and say, you know what, I read that book, or I listened to that podcast, or I saw you speaking with this person. And so I have a feeling that there's a lot of things that I'm not aware of that I'm impacting. Right. But, as far as the education side goes to it, I'm hoping that, you know, I wanted it to be a little bit more advanced this year, but, you know, along, but you know what, that's okay, because this is like a learning year. It's the first time that I've had students in another country that I'm not physically there.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, it's my trial year to get the kinks out before, you know, we go big. And so, and that's okay. I just want, you know, these young people to realize and get the skills that, you know, we were talking about before, that schools aren't teaching them.
Yeah.
You know, people call them soft skills. I now call them entrepreneurial skills, because whether you're going to be an entrepreneur or not doesn't mean that everybody's going to become an entrepreneur. That doesn't mean that. But what it does mean is that they have the skills to, you know, be resilient, persevere, you know, have faith, go through, you know, not look at a mistake as a failure, but to look at it as a learning experience. I think those are all entrepreneurs. Those are soft skills, having the ability to communicate properly and effectively, both verbally and written. I think if they have those skills, it's way more important than the knowledge of what we're telling our kids they have to learn. And so I've taken it to the point where it's teaching them how to learn as opposed to what to learn.
I agree. Margaret Mead once said that, you know, teach kids how to learn, not what to learn. And it's that's exactly what I was thinking as you were saying it. We've become entrenched in a system of education where we're, you know, teaching rote, and we're getting out of books, and it's kind of like, this is what you need to know, this is what you need to learn. But the entrepreneurial skills that you're talking about and the soft skills, it's how do we learn? How do we question things? How do we, you know, how do we have conversations? How do we have a growth mindset, you know, through our conversations? I think that stuff's so damn critical. And I'm not a big proponent of mainstream schools, and I don't get me wrong, because I think there's there's billions, millions, I don't know what there is, of fantastic teachers out there that are trying to do their best within a system that is outdated and patriarchal, and just it's teaching kids that if I don't get a particular score, I'm not good enough, and I think that's despicable. The teachers are trying to do better, but the system doesn't allow it. But if we're just not teaching the kid, we've got so many mental health issues now, you know, that we're trying to say to the kids, you must learn maths, you must learn English, you must do this right. And they don't care, you know, they're just saying, I just want to survive at the minute, you know, and we're not teaching them survival skills. So, but I want to come back to your 1 billion kids, and you're doing the maths in a different way to me. You're going, well, that's 1 million this year, then 1 million next year, or whatever. But I'm thinking, I did a LinkedIn post, you know, a video, and I was at I'd done a talk the night before, and my point was that if one person walks away from there impacted, and they go and tell 10 people, or they're kinder to 10 people, or they smile at 10 people, or whatever the hell they do that's better for 10 out to 10 people. And then if those 10 people tell 10 people, there's 100, and then another 10, there's 1,000, then 10,000. Then now, if anyone's listening, don't worry about my maths, because I'm not doing it on a bit of paper, but 100,000. And then next thing we've got, I don't know, the next thing we've got 1 million. Do you know? So it's only we're only talking about multiples of 10, and every single person can impact 10 people, you know. And so there's your million, and then add a couple more tens, and there's your billion, you know. And it's I don't think it's impossible, and it's not even so much that your book physically has to reach 1 billion people. It's just if one kid reads that book and then says, I'm going to make a difference, and then goes, they may impact 1,000, you know, and that 1,000 may impact another. A billion's not, it sounds like a a pie in the sky figure that's unachievable, but it's not, and the fact that if we write a measure, for example, I want to impact 1 billion youth, it's a driving force. It gets you up in the morning and says, well, how am I going with that? I've got more people to reach. Let's keep moving on this journey. And it's I hope you do, and I don't have any doubt that you will. And like you say, when you don't know who's listening, I have so many people say to me, oh, I listen to your podcast, and I would never. And one woman said, I did this a keynote online, and she wrote in the chat box, this one woman, you're my walking partner every morning. And I've never forgotten that. That was so impactful for me, that she takes me on her walk with my podcast every single morning. And I think as we're doing these things, we've got a responsibility to bring, I'm not always going to say positivity, but we've got to bring the truth. We've got to bring passion. We've got to bring inspiration to people, to make them feel better about themselves, and to make them realize, I can be me, and I'm okay to be me. And I think that's our responsibility with a platform, for people to be okay with who they are, but
absolutely.
I love it. Oh, go on.
Sorry. I mean, that's the thing, that we have to be okay with who we are, because we're the, it sounds so cliche, but we're the only us that we know, right? Yeah. And if we're all meant to be the same, then what a boring world we would live in.
Yeah.
But I guarantee, we both have a very similar mission, but I guarantee your approach and my approach are probably different.
Yeah.
So some kids are probably going to resonate with you in a different way that they would resonate with me. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, because having two of the same people working for the same thing, but being cookie cutter the same, it doesn't give the different experiences to the children that they would get learning from two different people, right? Yeah. So when people are trying to be, the same other inspirational, motivational speaker, the Tony Robbins or this person or that person, like, you're not meant to be him. You're not meant to be her, whomever it is. You're meant to be you. Like, what do you bring to the table that's different? There's a million things that you can bring to the table that's different. Yeah. Same thing with young people.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Yep, we're kind of like blades of grass, aren't we? Not one blade of grass is the same, and neither is one human. And you even if you just got cookie cutter stuff, like, what are your values? Well, yours and ours are the same. What are our strengths? Yours and mine are the same. But then what are our beliefs? Completely different. What is this? Completely different. It doesn't matter. You will never, ever have the same footprint of all the same things as anybody else on this planet. You never will. So, and we all deliver in such a different way. I so agree with you, and we need to love who we are and love what we bring to the world. We do. Now, you got a podcast, Secret to Success. Tell us more about it.
Yes, the secret to success isn't so secret. And again, I started this idea, same concept. When I decided that I was going to write the book, I'm like, okay, I'm going to make the podcast go along with it. And so what I did is I interviewed the people, and I created chapters of my first book out of the podcast, and it was a great thing, because then I would just go back and dictate them and then I would edit and all that stuff. So, but again, the same concept, the same idea is there in, when you say the secret to success isn't so secret, it's not a secret. It's whether or not you're going to take action on all of the things that you're being told, right? The fact that success comes from is not, a dollar figure. It's not what other people want you to do. It's what the gift that you have been given in this world, and how are you going to use it? And for the betterment of the world.
Yeah.
And so And so in getting to what you feel is success for you, you know, perseverance and not allowing yourself to fail and giving up and all that stuff. I just take those stories of all of these people, young and old, and show, like, you just show it's like the same thing over and over and over. Why did they succeed in the area that they succeeded in? Because they didn't give up, they persevered, they were resilient, you know, they fought against the naysayers. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And so I just feel like once that's drilled in, then, you know, young people or adults will realize too, like, you know, oh, I mean, imagine if when the situation happened and I lost everything with the school, I said, well, it's just not meant to be. I'm just going to go back and get a regular teaching job, and I'm just going to be a teacher for the rest of my life. And like, I would have failed at that point because I gave up, right? I did not allow that to happen because I believed in my mission and what I was doing so much that I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, and at that point in time, I had to move back home with my mom at 43 years old. Like that's enough for anybody to be like, what on earth is, you know, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? And then you have everybody chirping in your ear, like, when are you going to grow up? When are you going to be responsible? When are you going to, and I'm like, no, like this wasn't supposed to happen this way. But it wasn't supposed to happen that way to anybody. I mean, you look at all of the greats out there, you look at all of the smaller stories who have created success in their right, of what they wanted to accomplish. And the end of the day was they all overcame.
Yeah.
It's all about overcoming that moment of testing and trial. And are you going to come out the other side where you want to be?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No.
But
I always say it's like bashing through a big patch of blackberries to get to the beautiful green field on the other side. But it is hard work. When you in the Dominican Republic, so you're so far away from family, and you're just bashing it out down there on your own.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been doing that for 9 years. I came home for a year, but it's been 9.5 years now. I've been down there, and I guess, you know, like I said before, like when you're called to something, you are truly called to something. And I moved there on my own. I didn't, you know, I'm not married. I don't have children. Like I said, I originally went there just to perfect my Spanish. I was an Italian teacher in the States. So, I mean, it was pretty simple for me I taught myself Spanish, but to become fluent in it, you really need to be around it. So, and when I did that, and I could tell you story after story that would make anybody be like, how in God's name did you endure that?
Yeah.
You know, when I didn't have to, you know, but at the same time, it's just like, because there was somebody higher up was calling me and saying, Kristi, this is what you're meant to be doing. So you need to hold your ground.
Well, not only are you very committed, you're very brave as well, because there's a lot of people who wouldn't do that. So I think that's bloody wonderful. Kristi, I've loved this conversation. Absolutely loved it. And it's taken a few false starts. We've had a few hiccups, but
on my part. So sorry about that.
No, that's fine. But we have made it. I'm so glad we made it, because it's been an absolutely eye-opening, delightful conversation. And what you're doing is bloody fantastic. Now, where can people find you?
You can find me on social media, Kristi Maggio. And then I have kristimaggio.com, which is, I have all of my links are on there. Probably be the easiest way to find me.
Yeah.
Then there's the link on there to the foundation, Maggio Multicultural Foundation, to the school, Maggio Multicultural Academy. And so since this will be a podcast, Kristi, KristiMaggio.com. So,
Yeah.
and you can find links to everything right there.
Awesome. And I will put all that in the show notes anyway, and I'll put it on the video that comes out. But I can't thank you enough for the work you do for the world. You know, you're a saint, and I know you don't agree. You know, I don't agree when people say that, but you know, we have to have people fighting for good. We have to have people fighting for change. You know, we have to have enablers that, you know, enable the youth and empower the youth, and, you know, to not only to clean up our mess, but to remold the world, you know, to a way that is going to be more effective moving forward. And you're doing that. And I just love that you're doing it. So thank you.
You're doing the same thing, right? And so we're in it together, and I look forward to hopefully being able to work together on something in the future. I really do.
Me too. You're a bloody wonderful soul, and it's good to have your tribe around you that are all working in the same direction. So I hope that happens too. So thank you. All right. Well, now I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of New York, the rest of your night, and
thank you.
And just get that little bit of respite away from the Dominican Republic, just for a little snapshot for Christmas. And but yeah, you're just amazing. So I hope to catch up again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Take care.
Thank you. See ya.